Okay, I see that it's recording.
Super.
You
Then
go.
we're ready, set, go. Good morning, everyone. And if you didn't hear me say it before, I'll say it again. Thank you very much for joining this morning. My name is Greg Stultz. I'm the training coordinator for New Readers Press, the publishing division for Pro Literacy here in Syracuse, New York. And today's session is Teach Like a Reading Specialist with Evidence-Based Reading Instruction. So just a few very quick housekeeping notes. You are probably muted, but we have the chat open if you do have a question. And my colleague, my boss, Dan Helms, is monitoring the chat. So he'll inform me. If he doesn't respond to you directly in the chats, he'll inform me and we can stop the session and take a few questions here and there along the way. So don't be afraid to use the chat box. Hopefully we'll have a little bit of time at the end where we can open it up to live discussion, but only if I get started and don't go down any rabbit holes. So I promise to do my best. With that, I'm going to go ahead and get started. So what we're going to cover in this session, first I'm going to define evidence-based reading instruction, or what I'm going to be calling from here on in EBRI because it's easier, and its four key components. We'll take a look at an EBRI lesson template, and then I'll be sharing some activities and strategies, first by plugging a template into a reading resource, or is it plugging a reading resource into the template? Well, either way, I'm doing it. And then we're going to look at a resource that's already built on an EBRI template. So hopefully from these two ways of sharing, you'll get a lot of great ideas for evidence-based reading instruction. When you see this green exclamation point on a slide, it means I'm citing information found in this Department of Education report. What is evidence-based reading instruction, and how do you know it when you see it? It's in the public domain, and it's available on the DOE's website. So before we jump in, what is evidence-based reading instruction? Well, let's break it down. First, the Partnership for Reading defines reading as a complex system of deriving meaning from print, and it requires an understanding of how phonemes or speech sounds are connected to print, the ability to decode unfamiliar words, the ability to read fluently, sufficient background information and vocabulary to foster reading comprehension, the development of appropriate active strategies to construct meaning from print, the development and maintenance of a motivation to read. And evidence-based means research from scientific data or expert consensus. It must be valid and reliable and come from a variety of sources. According to the National Reading Panel and Susan McShane's work, there are four principles of evidence-based reading instruction. These are also what the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act and the Student Achievement in Reading, or the STAR Project, consider to be essential components of reading. So, what are these four principles? Well, you just saw them a few slides ago. In no particular order, first there's alphabetics. Alphabetics, the combination of skills that allows readers to identify words in print, phonemic awareness, phonics, decoding. We can't take for granted that our adult learners have a good handle on this. And often, we know, they don't. So working on phonics, on word analysis, word parts, and word families increases student success with reading and helps readers to identify and learn new words. That's alphabetics. Next, there's vocabulary. It's essential for a reader to know what words mean to be able to extract the meaning from the text, but also as the reader's vocabulary grows, she or he will be able to read a broader variety of materials and at higher levels. Important to mention that vocabulary work at lower levels includes learning sight words, as well as words that follow regular patterns. And that's vocabulary. Next, there's reading comprehension skills and strategies. These are vital as they help the reader understand things like how the information they're reading is organized, right? How to extract meaning, and how to combine or synthesize ideas. And lastly, there's fluency, reading quickly and accurately. If the reader is concentrating on decoding words and putting them together to make sentences, well, then what is she or he not focusing on? If you thought to yourself or said aloud content or comprehension, then you're absolutely right, right? If you're too busy, just trying to put the words together, then how can you be focusing on the content of what you're reading? Fluency is also reading with proper emphasis and inflection, or what we call prosody, which adds meaning to what's being read. And as reading becomes easier, it also becomes more enjoyable, which increases motivation, and that's so important. And let's remember that a student's motivation to read is fueled not only by visible progress, but also by connecting reading materials to personal interests, including learning and life goals. Man, when I was in school, you couldn't pay me to read materials unless I was, for one reason or another, interested in what you were pitching. And I know that it's like that for a lot of other learners as well. All right, so now that we've defined EBRI, let's take a look at a lesson model. First, we should note that according to research, the instruction should be systematic, sequenced, direct, and explicit! Exclamation point. You can see by the template that the first two prerequisites are satisfied, systematic and sequenced. There it is. We've got a warm-up, reading, word work, and a wrap-up. And a general outline of what we're going to do under each category. So as we walk through this model, you'll see that instruction is also direct and explicit. Each new skill or strategy or new word is first explained, then it's modeled, followed by guided practice, and finally independent practice and application. The warm-up prepares students by introducing content of the key reading, introducing reading skills and strategies that would be learned and practiced. For example, previewing, identifying key points and supporting details, and so on. Introducing key vocabulary words by reading and providing a definition for each. And then engaging them in the topic and promoting brainstorming through discussion, whether it's by using a picture, a photo, a diagram, or realia. Those can all go a long way here. So the next part of the warm-up, at lower reading levels, following a lesson introduction, each lesson could begin with a phonics warm-up. Introduce the target sound, then using a picture, a photo, items in the classroom, or common items found in the home. Have students identify words with the target sound. Students might come up with these on their own, and it's easier when the target sound is at the beginning of the word, or you may need to help with some guiding questions. What do you see in the photo that has an E sound? Is it spelled with an EA? What's this guy's occupation? What's in his right hand? I'll give you a hint. It rhymes with beaver. What's in his left? What kind of meat do you think that is? And here we might generate words like meat, beard, ear, cleaver, veal from the picture. You know, again, some may need some prompting, but some they may come up with on their own. The cleaver, what do you do with the cleaver? You cleave. Or and or adjectives. You know, this guy looks kind of mean to me. The mean butcher. Additionally, depending on the class or student level, you could have students read a few sentences and identify words with the target sound. Here's what they might come up with. Include specific instruction about the sound and how words are spelled as student level dictates. Tips and example words will help students to remember what they learn. So, horse meat was found in beef products sold across Europe. At least some of the meat came from butchers in Romania. All right. So now that we've done some phonics warm-ups, next is vocabulary. Tiered vocabulary, as referenced in the College Career Readiness Standards, includes 3 levels or tiers. Tier 1 words are everyday words. And even though students know what these words mean, shoe, sad, food, they're not necessarily words that they know by sight. At lower reading levels, one way students improve their reading fluency is by building a foundation of sight words. Activities like circling or underlining words in a passage, and simple closed sentence exercises develop strong reading muscles. Tier 2 words are higher level words that are found in more sophisticated texts and across a variety of content and genres. These words are less likely to be part of the student's current vocabulary, and they're essential since they're often found in textbooks and on tests. The Tier 2 words give students the expanded vocabulary they need to read higher level, more sophisticated texts and express themselves better in writing and speaking. Tier 3 words are specialized vocabulary words, and they're domain specific, like science words, finance words, legal words, political words. These words are more likely to be introduced and defined at the point of use, so students can make use and make sense of the text. Working on these tiers addresses Language Strand College Career Readiness Anchor 6. Acquire and use accurately a range of general academic, Tier 2, and domain-specific, Tier 3, words and phrases sufficient for reading, writing, speaking, and listening at the college and career readiness level. As you work with students on Tier 2 and Tier 3 words, direct instruction before reading will improve comprehension. The words are explained, they're modeled, and used prior to reading the passage so that the students can then read the words in context with improved comprehension. Asking and answering personal questions is a great way to get students to understand a word by using prior knowledge and relating it to personal experiences. And that makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? The word devastating or the word devastation takes on real meaning when the learner connects it to a traumatic event that she or he may have had. It may be a natural disaster that was devastating. The devastation caused by war. Some of us have people who've actually, been through this. Whether it's, war in another country or war on the streets, gang wars. It could be the loss of a loved one. That's devastating. Or maybe it's their favorite team losing the World Series or the Super Bowl or the Stanley Cup. Whatever that means to them. So prior knowledge and personalization really opens up the learning, and that's super important. And effective vocabulary practice should include both writing and discussion opportunities. Going above and beyond memorizing to pass the quiz, only to forget the word a couple of weeks later because I don't need it anymore, I passed the quiz, to ownership and practical usage. Do I have time for a quickie? Maybe, maybe not. I'll take a chance. You know, I spent 8 years teaching English in Japan, and when my wife became pregnant, I learned that new word, pregnant, in Japanese, and I was using it at every opportunity. You know, and that's how I did it. I still know the word to this day, ninshin shiteiru or ninshin shiteimasu, you know, to be pregnant, because I used it constantly. Sometimes even at the wrong times. I was sitting on a bus, and there was a Japanese woman with a very, very, very round belly got on board, huffing and puffing. I quickly stood up and offered her my seat, and then said, wanting to use my new word, ninshin shiteiru desho. You're pregnant, I see. Yeah, she wasn't. Anyway, all right, there I got distracted. So much for avoiding rabbit holes. Moving forward, writing and discussion opportunities, crucial along with knowledge and personalization to really owning vocabulary. Here's a good example. So first we can introduce the spelling, pronunciation, and definition of the new word. All right, the word devour, to eat quickly or hungrily. Next we model usage in 1 or 2 sentences. The greedy boy devoured the candy before his little brother could get any. Then, using blank index cards, have students write the word on one side, then flip the card over and draw 2 perpendicular lines as you see here on the slide. In the top space, have them write the definition in their own words. Okay, maybe they describe devour as eat crazy fast. Right? However they're going to remember it. Next, ask them to think of a synonym and or an antonym or an opposite of the word. Well, why would we do that? Having them come up with similar or opposite words is a great vocabulary muscle builder. Identifying the word nibble as the opposite of devour can give the student a better understanding of the word. Right? Have them write the word or the words in that second space there. And finally, ask them to think of the word based on what they may already know about it and or their own personal experiences, and use it in a sentence. So, I was so hungry last night, I ate a whole pizza, I devoured a whole pizza in 15 minutes. I could probably see myself doing that. Conclude the activity by possibly pairing up and sharing definitions, examples, and experiences. Now we're using these in discussion and talking about it. Remember, using the word in conversation is a powerful mnemonic strategy. Your students can create their own vocabulary index card library maybe, use them as flashcards for study or review. You know, numerous possibilities here, but this is a really good exercise to help students relate to new vocabulary. Pre-reading. So before we allow our students to dive into the reading passage, setting the stage by employing pre-reading strategies will engage the students in the topic and help them to relate to the reading, which will improve comprehension. Have your students do these things before they read the passage. Read the titles and headings. Look at photos or other visual elements. Read the captions, right, as a preview. Think about what they already know about the topic. When we read with a purpose, it's easier to stay focused. So have students ask themselves, what do I hope to accomplish by reading this? What am I supposed to accomplish by reading this? What questions do I need answered? What do I want to learn from this reading? Based on the title and headings, perhaps on captions, photos, maybe even skimming the passage, what do I think this passage will be about? right? And some of these things happen, unconsciously. When I'm looking at a photo or an illustration, whether it's on the cover of a book or attached to a news article, it's one of the first things that I do, and I don't even think about it. I take a look at the photo or the picture, and I think, gee, what's this going to be about? And hopefully it helps to engage me. As reading is an active process, how do you keep your students engaged while they read? Okay, well, have students use these during the reading strategies to interact with the passage. You could make connections to personal experiences, visualize what they read, underline, circle, highlight important details, take notes. Use context clues to determine the meaning of unfamiliar words in the passage. What in this sentence will help me understand what this word means, or maybe the sentence before or after. Right? Ask and answer questions as they read. Synthesize, right? Gather and combine information and ideas to form new ones. I liken becoming a good reader to becoming a good driver. These pre-reading and during the reading activities are a lot like pre-driving and driving habits, in my opinion. Adjust your seat and mirrors. Fasten your seatbelt. Check your gauges on the dash. Check your rear view mirror. Check your side mirrors. Monitor your speed. Keep a proper distance from the vehicle ahead of you. Anticipate other drivers' actions. Stay between the lines. Keep your eyes on the road horizon. Check your blind spots before changing lanes or backing up. And on and on and on. But here's the thing. As student drivers, we didn't learn all these at once. And it was too much. And I can speak firsthand to this because I taught both of my daughters how to drive, one of them just recently. It took time before they became second nature to us. It took time before my daughters could get the hang of doing more than one of these things. Take your eyes off the road for just a second. Make sure you don't have any cars behind you, right? And so on. But it takes practice. So it's important to not overwhelm our students. Introduce and work on these skills one at a time would be my advice. And after students get the hang of using one interactive strategy per passage or activity, then challenge them with 2 and possibly 3. And before long, suddenly they're doing things, and these have just become second nature, just habits that they've picked up. After the reading. After each reading, there's a comprehension check. Students work with teacher or partner with a classmate, and they answer general questions for gist, right, to make sure they understand what they read. They could retell the article in their own words. Students should also answer text-dependent questions using close reading. And as defined by Dr. Douglas Fisher, San Diego State University, close reading is the careful and purposeful reading and rereading of a text. This addresses Reading Strand Anchor 1 from the College Career Readiness Standards. Read closely to determine what the text says explicitly and to make logical inferences from it. Cite specific textual evidence when writing or speaking to support conclusions drawn from the text. And just thinking here as an option, you could have the students write the text-dependent questions and then give them to a partner to answer, right? Accomplishing 2 things, 2 birds with 1 stone. More after the reading. We can also target a specific reading skill. For example, identifying main points and supporting details in a passage. Composing accurate summaries. Again, we're not doing all of these at once, but pick and choose and pick one of these to have them work on. You may assign it for the next several lessons. We're working on after the reading, and the reading for gist and answering questions about it, identifying the key points and supporting details. Next several lessons, you might switch it up and move on to composing a summary. Right? What else could you do? Understanding cause and effect. Sequence of events, right? Creating a timeline. Comparing and contrasting. Here's one, reading between the lines, right? Inferences. And understanding and identifying plot and setting. So here, numerous things that you could work on. Again, specific reading skills to target after the reading, after they've read for gist, after they've checked their comprehension, have them work on one of these specific skills. And as always with direct instruction, we first explain and model the skill or the strategy, and then we provide them with guided practice. And by providing instruction on these reading skills, we address reading strand anchor 2, determine central ideas or themes of a text and analyze their development, summarize the key supporting details and ideas. And Webb's depth of knowledge level 2 also is addressed here, as these skills require processing of text, ordering, connecting ideas, classifying text, and identifying patterns, relationships, and main points. What's next? On to fluency. And let me say that it's not by accident that fluency work bats cleanup here. Why? Well, by the time students get to the fluency practice, what have they already done? Well, they're familiar with the text. They worked with the vocabulary. They've read and reread the text several times. So now when they read for speed and accuracy, when they're practicing and improving their emphasis and inflection, they should notice marked improvement. And that's motivating. Where have we seen that before? So ideas for fluency. At lower levels, you could use a phonics review where students reread the passage and write down words with the targeted sound. What else? There's echo reading. Read a sentence or two to the students and ask the students to read it back to you, mimicking pronunciation, rhythm, and intonation. That's echo reading. Another good fluency exercise is paired reading, where students alternate sentences. You read one, I'll read the next one, and we go back and forth through the passage, paragraph by paragraph possibly. And here you would monitor and instead of lead. Yet another one, there's choral reading. Read the passage, modeling proper pace and prosody, emphasis and inflection. The students read along with you. So you all read together. It's like a church reading. You're all reading it together. Here's one that I like, that I enjoyed using in the classroom myself. It's called popcorn reading. And if you're teaching in a classroom setting, this is really good to use. One student begins by reading a sentence or more and then says popcorn and calls another student's name. That student reads, then popcorns someone else. The students actually stay on their toes because just as we don't know which kernel of corn is going to pop next, they don't know who's going to be reading next. And nobody wants to be called out and embarrassed, so everyone's paying attention. It's a really good focus exercise, great fluency activity. And there's one more if you want to challenge students and you have a larger class, you might even attempt orchestra reading. I don't know if I made this up or not. I may have. Similar to popcorn reading, but here you divide the class into sections. And instead of calling out popcorn and a name, you call out the orchestra section, and that group actually reads together. So you would as a conductor, or you might even want to assign a conductor. Just get everybody, working and doing something. You could call out, percussion, and this group of students reads, and then you cut them off and you say brass, and now the brass moves in. Woodwinds and strings, or whatever you want to do there. But just another option. Some would take to this. Some would say, I'm not doing this. But you'd be surprised. All right, word work. As breaking words into parts, prefixes, suffixes, roots, compound words, and so on, help figure out a word's meaning, choose a word part to work on after you've done the fluency work. We're still working here with the passage, using words from the text to demonstrate, okay, and have students brainstorm additional words and use them in sentences. So here we're working on uni, the prefix UNI, and in the passage we see that it was in university, uniform, and then maybe they brainstorm and they come up with unify, unibrow, unicorn, and you have to prompt them, give them a few clues, but this is another good exercise. Reference to this skill is made in Language Strand Anchor 4, and I'm picking and paraphrasing here. Determine or clarify the meaning of unknown words by analyzing meaningful word parts. There's more to Anchor Strand 4, but this is what's relevant to us. Vocabulary review, continuing to work with the words, so important. I know I don't have to tell you, but vocabulary is so important and for so many reasons. Students should continue to work with the new vocabulary both in the context of the reading passage and beyond. You can use level-appropriate exercises with your student or class, like maybe it's matching exercises at lower levels, close exercises, sentence writing. These are all ways to continue to work with the vocabulary. Students could write the definition in the form of a question, or using the vocabulary word, ask a question related to the reading passage, right? And then switch it up with a partner, also a good option. We're wrapping up the lesson. A think and discuss activity is used. Now that the students have a good grasp on the reading passage from, gee whiz, the vocabulary, the reading comprehension, they may even have done some writing activities, fluency work. Now they're prepared to participate in conversation about the topic. And here's the key, using academic language and the new vocabulary they picked up to express their ideas and opinions, to listen to and collaborate with their peers. And this strategy is aligned to Speaking and Listening Strand Anchor 1. Prepare for and participate effectively in a range of conversations and collaborations with diverse partners, building on others' ideas and expressing their own clearly and persuasively. And that is the skeleton, the template that I have to share with you. Now, let's take a resource to see how we can apply the principles, the lesson template, and activities for evidence-based reading instruction. So you've seen the template itself. Let's plug it in. News for You. News for You is a weekly newspaper for adult learners offered in print and digital format. 7 articles from the Washington Post and Associated Press are carefully rewritten with permission 48 weeks out of the year. 4 of the stories are at reading levels 4 to 6, or in ESL speak, that's like a low intermediate level, and 3 of the articles at levels 3 to 4, reading levels 3 to 4, or like a high beginning, I would say. For today's session, I pulled this. We're going to use this story from the June 17th issue. History's Ghosts Are Haunting a Hurting America. And this story was rewritten at reading level 4 to 6. Rewritten with permission, by the way, and just more relevant for learners at this super important level. So we're going to warm up. We'll start by reading the lesson objectives, identifying the reading topic. So history repeats itself in America. That's what this is going to be about. We could introduce the skill that will be learned and practiced. Right? We're going to learn the new skill, compare and contrast in today's lesson. And introduce the new vocabulary words: pandemic, impeached, charged, woven, movement. And then we'll launch a discussion starter, and we'll use these photos to do so. You know, I mentioned before, photos are great. How are these photos the same? How are they different? When, where do you think these photos were taken? Right? Typical 5 W's questions: who, what, where, when. Throw in how. What's happening in the photos? And I'll tell you, using student responses to generate more questions, the most challenging part of this exercise could be putting a stop to it. Okay, let's move on with the lesson. Photos are a great way to generate discussion. Even at higher reading levels, we can continue to work on phonics. Again, this article going back, I forgot. Oh, reading levels 4 to 6. So, you know, even though the article is written at reading levels 4 to 6, we can continue to work on phonics. We can continue to work on word analysis, on word parts and families to sharpen students' reading skills. Here, we're going to use a graphic organizer to list GH words from the passage, and we'll put them under their respective sounds and brainstorm other ones. By the way, graphic organizers, awesome. Use them every chance you get because they're just great at helping students to organize their thoughts and ideas, whether it's in reading or writing assignments. So here we have GH. In the passage, it's used in the word ghosts and later in the word flight, right? So here we're teaching the G sound of GH, the silent GH sound, and also the F sound that GH sometimes makes. Good exercise. Okay, so past the phonics, as we move on to vocabulary, we can use direct instruction to explain each word, model it, then have students work with each word, and here, using prior knowledge and personal experiences to write and talk about them. And here we have the word charged, for example. Explain the word and provide its definition. Officially accused of doing something wrong. Then, having used it in a sentence, right? The student was the woman was charged with driving under the influence. Right? Give a few examples. Then have the learner give her or his own definition. So charged, and maybe the learner writes here, arrested for a crime. Right? Next, we're going to have them come up with a synonym or maybe an antonym. So what's another word for charged? Can you think of a word similar or that means the same thing? How about blamed? Great, write it down. And what about an opposite? Is there an antonym or an opposite for the word charged? What happens? The opposite of being charged, how about being released? You know, and this with prompting, maybe they come up with it on their own. Some are harder than others to come up with opposites for. You know, what's the opposite of helicopter? What? You know, how about submarine? So, but good creative thinking here, and again, it'll help them wrap themselves around the word and have a deeper understanding of it. And lastly, they come up with their own example, possibly from personal experiences, but they come up with their own sentence. My brother was charged with assault and battery. Okay, so now we're going into before you read. From the caption and photos and prior knowledge, what predictions might your students make? You could ask questions like, what do you think the story will be about? What is meant by history's ghosts? Can you think of any? As students read the story, encourage them to try to make connections to their own experiences. You know, this article references protesting, picketing, discrimination, contagious illness, police brutality, unemployment, and more. You know, can you make personal connections as you read this passage? Right? Can you visualize what's happening? Okay, on to after you read. In this article, there are more than 10 major events mentioned dating from 1918 to the present. And so here are a few reading comprehension ideas. First, you could have students work in groups or pairs to see how many tragic events they can name from the article by memory, or, you know, working alone if it's a one-on-one session. Next, have them return to the text and answer questions about when, where, and why different events occurred. Encourage students to use academic language, informing both questions and answers. For example, according to this article, or in paragraph 4 it states, right? Set them up, give them a few examples, and then encourage them to use this language as they ask and answer questions. Here's another thing you could do. You could write the events minus their dates on pieces of paper or big index cards and hand them out. Then call the students up to the front of the classroom at random and have them stand in the right place with their card, creating a timeline, right? So working on sequence. Next, we'll work on a specific reading skill. Okay? In this lesson, compare and contrast really stands out. Let learners know that they'll compare events from the past to the events of this year and see what's different and what's the same. Have them draw a Venn diagram, right? On the left side of the diagram, have them write in the past. On the right side, have them write now. And in the middle, things that are the same. Working alone or with a partner, they write events from the story in the correct categories. For the middle category, they can use their own ideas to describe how the past and the present are the same. Great exercise. For fluency work, okay, I chose choral reading for this one. Read the passage, model proper pace and prosody, and have the students read along with you. And now for word work. Students analyze and use word parts. This article is perfect for teaching the suffix ment. The lesson to drive home is that it's important to know the definition of suffixes so that you'll know what the new word means, right? So that's the exercise we're going to focus on. Again, direct instruction. We're going to explain model usage of the suffix. We can explain that the suffix ment is known as a noun suffix because when it's added to the end of a base word, which is usually a verb, the new word gets used as a noun. Explain that the suffix ment means the action of doing something or the result of an action, and support it with examples. So using the words movement, statement, and treatment from the story, you could provide definitions of the root words, identifying the part of speech, and then using them in a sentence. Next, you could convert the root words and use the new words in a sentence. Right? So first, using move, modeling it, using it, and then movement. And now that you've shown them how to do it, have students brainstorm other words that end in ment to do this on their own. And they might come up with words like judgment, argument, punishment. Right? And here again, you may have to do a little coaxing and hint giving, depending on their level. But I love this one. Impeached is actually one of the vocabulary words in this story. And that provides us with a great opportunity to connect the skill to the passage. We can take the word impeached and make the word impeachment. For vocabulary review, now that we've done some word work, we're going to work more with the vocabulary, have the students write text-dependent questions using the vocabulary words. Okay? Then we'll swap questions with a partner and answer them, also using the vocabulary words. Name 2 presidents mentioned in the article who faced impeachment. President Nixon faced impeachment in '74. President Trump was impeached in 2019. And finally, we could use one or both of these activities to wrap up our lesson. We could do a group chat from the article. Historian Thurston Clark says, many things are hitting us all at once in this country, and with what hope? What do you think he means? Do you agree? Why or why not? Or discuss with a partner, write down at least 3 ideas to support your opinion. Do you think black people's lives in the U.S. will change after the current protests? Why or why not? Right. Complete EBRI lesson using the News for You newspaper. So that was me taking our EBRI template and plugging it into a high-interest story from News for You. But wouldn't it be awesome if there were lessons out there already created for us at different reading levels using the EBRI template I just shared? You see where this is going, don't you? You do. Okay, but I'm going to have to fly through this, so hang on to your hats. Here we go. Journey to Success provides 7 levels of reading and writing instruction from introductory level to level 6. There's a rich teacher's guide that accompanies each level, and we put them on our website, actually, where you can download and photocopy them for free. Built on the principles of evidence-based reading instruction and the essential components of reading as defined by WIOA and the STAR Project, correlated to the College and Career Readiness Standards, to TABE 1112, and to CASAS, and preparing adult learners for both academic testing and the workforce. This is Journey to Success. As I race along here, what I hope you'll notice is how the lesson structure is consistent, even though the level of complexity increases throughout the series. Right? In the introductory book, as you can see, it's heavy on phonics, working through consonants, vowels, and then consonant blends. Right? And here you see our basic template. With just a few exceptions, each lesson is just 2 pages. The first page begins with a warm-up. Students prepare to learn about a sound by identifying words that contain the sound. An illustration provides the opportunity for discussion, and it will help them brainstorm. So we've got our warm-up. Phonics work follows as students identify, dictate, and copy words with the target letter or blend. And as students move from single consonants to short vowels to blends, the length and difficulty of the exercises and readings increases. Next, learners work with key vocabulary in a picture dictionary format, and they start building a base of sight words because it's the introductory level, right? In the read and write section, students employ active reading and comprehension strategies. Here are before, during, and after, and they're then going to work on fluency. And there are close exercises that increase in difficulty as they practice the new words. Each lesson ends with either a language experience approach activity or a partner or group discussion used to collaborate, to reflect, and to practice very basic process writing. And that's the introductory level of Journey to Success, a clear evidence-based reading instruction template. Next, we have Student Books 1 and 2. 12 lessons across 4 themed units provide a robust blend of work and life skills, science, social studies, and literature. We have the same EBRI lesson layout, but the instruction and skills work are fleshed out over 8 pages as the length and complexity of the passages and the activities increase. Journey empowers learners by telling them what they'll learn in every lesson. And we did this for the News for You, didn't we? This allows learners time to think about what they already know about these topics, concepts, or skills. Do you know any words that start with UN? Have you heard of Rosa Parks? What do you know about cause and effect? A photograph or illustration in every lesson opener helps learners relate to the topic and provides fuel for discussion. Following the lesson introduction, there's phonics work as the students read a few sentences and then they look for words with the target sound. There's specific instruction about the sound and how words are spelled, and tips and example words help the students remember what they learn. Then there are typically like 3 to 4 additional activities like minimal pairs, word families, and cross out the word that doesn't belong, things like that. So lots of phonics work there. For vocabulary, students work with sight words, counting syllables, close exercises. Next, a vocabulary skill like using context clues or word parts is explained and modeled, and students practice it. Now as we approach the reading passage, we see the active reading technique being used. Setting the stage to engage by previewing the passage, right, before you read, and then interacting with the passage during your read, right, by underlying important details, underlining, circling, highlighting. Worth pointing out, Journey is packed with charts, diagrams, maps, lots of real photos and graphic organizers. College Career Readiness Anchor 7 says, integrate and evaluate content presented in diverse media and formats, including visually and quantitatively as well as in words. After each reading, students work with a partner to retell the story in their own words. They answer comprehension questions to make sure they understood the reading. And in this, they are discussing an idea from the reading. Do you think Rosa Parks was brave, and why? Then they work with a specific reading skill that, once again, is taught using direct instruction. Right here, cause and effect from the passage. Parks refused to move to the back of the bus. The effect? Police arrested her. A phonics review has students rereading the passage to write down words with the target sound, and this is fluency work as well, and then reading as a class to improve speed, accuracy, and prosody, or reading together with your learner if it's one-on-one. Journey addresses writing as well as reading, and the writing tasks cover common types of writing adults may need to do both academically and in the workforce. And there's a logical flow as the skill used for reading is always related to the writing skill, and then it's applied to the writing task. So it's all really merges really nicely. Each writing exercise begins with an explanation and a model of the skill, and in keeping with the standards, Anchor 5, Journey teaches process writing, planning, drafting, revising, and editing. And then some of the lessons actually direct students to the back of the book, where there's a mini grammar lesson satisfying yet another standard. Demonstrate command of the conventions of standard English grammar usage. And finally, students express their ideas and opinions. Why do you think African Americans didn't ride the buses? How did working together help black people? Would people today take a stand like Rosa Parks? In books 3 to 6, and I can see that we're out of time here, the same workplace and academic backdrops are used to teach the reading skills. The same EBRI template is used. What changes incrementally is the amount of time and the level of complexity in regards to vocabulary, sentence structure, and passage length, the close reading and evidence gathering required, and the relevant workforce readiness and academic content that's acquired and used. But it's the same structure, folks. 2 more quick concepts and we're done. The first is teach the reader, not the reading. The focus of evidence-based reading instruction is to help students master reading strategies that build reading skill. For example, when they're learning the comprehension strategy of summarizing, they can transfer it to other situations and then make meaning from a variety of texts. The second is that instruction must be continuously monitored by teacher and learners to gauge its effectiveness. And to those points, even though Journey introduces important content across literature, social studies, science, workforce readiness, it tests the students on the reading strategies and skills, not the content area subject matter. And every Journey to Success level has unit reviews and a level review for ongoing assessment and additional practice. And there you have it. EBRI in just over 60 minutes. Sorry I ran late. I hope you found this informative, maybe even a little fun. Thanks for joining me today. If you have questions or comments, please feel free to contact me. My contact information here. Keep in mind I'm on the East Coast. And if you don't have it already, you'll find your state sales representative's contact information on our website at newreaderspress.com. Folks, I'll be back on at 1 p.m. Eastern today to deliver a second presentation using JPay tablets for instruction with News for You. A spoiler alert, I'll be sharing a few of these activities again, but with fresh examples along with lots of other great ideas for using the News for You for reading, writing, and language instruction. So I hope you'll join me for today. Thank you so much and have a great rest of the day.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you.